I'm watching.
Yeah, but I turned the recording on, so now I got you on the recording. Welcome everybody to our Open Education Resources Open Access Week. Today we have a presentation by Allison Brown, the Digital Publishing Services Manager at SUNY Geneseo, talking about Introduction to Pressbooks for Publishing OER. Allison received her MFA from Emerson College and is in charge of publishing and editing of Milne Library and SUNY Geneseo student publications, is the Digital Publishing Services Manager for Milne Open Textbooks, advisor coordinator for the Gandy Dancer, and many other responsibilities here at Geneseo. And with that, I will turn it over to Allison. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you. So welcome everybody. It's good to see you today. Happy Open Ed Week. Today we're going to talk about Pressbooks, and I'm going to get started by sharing my screen. Can everyone see Milne Publishing? Yep, okay, great, thank you. All right, so first of all, I figured I would take a moment to talk about what Milne Publishing is, because some of you might not know that Milne does publish. We publish a number of different types of publications in kind of 3 different series. So we publish Geneseo authors, so that's any Geneseo staff, faculty, student, or alumni that is interested in publishing with us can submit a proposal. We also publish open textbooks, Milne Open Textbooks, which is formerly SUNY Open Textbooks, and we work with any SUNY faculty member that wants to publish an open textbook or submit a proposal to publish an open textbook. And then we also publish Genesee Valley reprints, and those are reprints of items in our special collections that are of interest to the Genesee Valley region. So those are all of the publications that we support, and if you want more information about it, I encourage you to get in touch with me. So today we are talking about Pressbooks. This is another service that we provide. This is an open source online book publishing software that is built on WordPress, and it is available for the SUNY Geneseo community to use. This is a tool that we've been using in Milne Publishing for many years now to produce our own texts, and we've recently made it available for any SUNY staff or student or faculty to use and hopefully make some awesome new publications. So what makes Pressbooks unique is that it's a digital first online publishing software. So traditionally with book publishing, you'd start with your manuscript, it would go to your publisher would put it into a proprietary software for print layout, usually Adobe InDesign, and that would make it hard to make any edits, and then they would have to do the whole process again if they wanted to make it into an ebook. So multiple conversions, and you still end up with a format that's not very accessible and not widely known or not widely distributed. So with Pressbooks, it's a digital first publishing system. So you create your book online using the software, and you can export it into multiple types of files. So the most common one will be for print books, and then we have Mobi and EPUB for e-readers and mobile devices, and then in a bunch of other open formats that make it easy to make copies and remix and revise our textbooks, which is really important for OER. So I'm showing you the main page of Milne Publishing right now. And I'm looking for the chat, but I don't think I can find it when I'm in.
Should be up at the top, Allison. If you hover up there, your toolbar will come up.
That's okay. John, can I give you a link to stick in the chat? I just put it in Slack. Sorry about that. This is just if you want to follow along. So this is the main page of our Pressbooks instance. Right here, you can click and fill out a form to request an account. It's really simple, just your email address, site title, how you plan to use Pressbooks, and that's just so I know how best to support you. You can get there from our publishing page on our website. So if you're at the library's website, on the left-hand side, we have a library publishing link, and then under publishing tools, there's a Pressbooks link right there, and the form is actually just linked right there. You can also read about our other publications as well as the journals that we support. So I figured what I would do today is go through some examples of how people have used Pressbooks for open education and how hopefully you might be interested in using Pressbooks to open up your content and make your resources available. So the first example I have is an open textbook. So this is an open textbook that's being published by a faculty member right here at Geneseo, a faculty emeritus from the biology department. George Briggs has been working with us for the last couple of years and is we're very nearly done and ready to have his botany book released. So you can see on our main page, we have our nice splash page with our cover. We have our open license right here, front and center. And then we also have a download link, which will have more download formats when it's actually produced, but that's just what we have for now. And then if you scroll down, you'll be able to see all of the different chapters that you can click into. Looks like my internet's having trouble loading. One of the things that's built into Pressbooks that makes it a really good tool for open education and specifically open textbooks is that it has these built-in text boxes. It seems simple, but it's really important to have these kind of regular check-ins with students. And so having a tool that will let you visually put in an element like topics or learning objectives or key takeaways or examples will really take your content to the next level. So that's all built in. And then here at the bottom, you can just page through to the next chapter. So the next example is from someone that is present right now. So I hope it's okay that I'm showing just a little bit of this, Brandon. We won't jump too far into this book because it's in progress, but this is a great example of a book that is being remixed from its original form. So Brandon came to me and had two different open textbooks he wanted to use. And we were able to import both of those and blend the chapters together and delete the chapters he didn't want to use, put them together for a whole new open textbook. And I wanted to also show you on here, we used a cloning feature in order to make a copy of the original textbook. And at the bottom of the table of contents page, you can see we have book information. And it shows that this is a cloned version and it links back to the original textbook. And so you kind of have a line there between your remixed version and the original version of the textbook. So you can kind of compare them if you're interested in that. Anything you wanted to add, Brandon?
So this would be an example of using, I chose these two textbooks because they were both, I found them through our Oasis OER search tool. And then the way I'm structuring this course I'm teaching, I didn't quite like either textbook completely. So this is a really great way for me to kind of pick and choose what chapters I wanted to make it fit with the content I'm going to be teaching in my course. And one thing that's been really nice and easy to do with this, I was actually surprised at how easy Pressbooks actually is, because I mean, my feeling as a person who's not like I don't have any talent to use like Adobe products really, but my feeling is like if you know how to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs, you could probably figure out Pressbooks in terms of like editing the pages. Because one thing I had to do is go through each chapter, and there were certain things I wanted to edit. In particular, one of the books refers to specific library links to the original author's library. So I wanted to make sure that was, when students click on it, it would open up something at Milne Library. But the whole process was really, really easy to do. And I'm actually going to be adding a section in the book about doing or creating presentations. And for that it's proving to be pretty easy as well, because I'm just like taking different videos I found from YouTube that I want to present in there. But I've really been just impressed at how easy it's been to use Pressbooks. And I think it's awesome that I have like a custom textbook that's meeting all the needs I have.
That's great. Thanks for letting me put you on the spot there, Brandon.
Yeah,
You said it better than I could have. Yeah, so that's our second example. My third example for you is one that I didn't reset to its main title. The last example is an example of a public domain text that's been imported into Pressbooks that can be used kind of as a custom edition, and it could be annotated or added to by the faculty member teaching or by the students that are taking the class. So this is done with a tool that's called Hypothesis. So Hypothesis is a third-party software that is kind of layered on top of Pressbooks, but it allows you to highlight and annotate any given page. So I am logged in, so you can't just do this without an account, but it's really easy to make an account. So I can add an annotation. And now when you come to this page, anyone will see that word highlighted and be able to see that annotation. So this could be a really powerful tool in working with a text to have your students be either reading the faculty member and subject matter experts' annotations or be annotating it themselves. The other little feature I wanted to show you was the glossary feature. So you can add in glossary terms and make them clickable and easily accessible for students to find those definitions. So they're just bolded, and then you click on them and it pops up and you can see the definition. Let's see. All right. Any questions so far about these three examples or the kind of front end of Pressbooks?
I have a question, Allison, about Hypothesis. So if you've created a Hypothesis group, can I assume that you and other members of the group can post to the group from inside this interface and not be restricted simply to posting to their individual accounts or publicly?
Yes. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I believe that is the case. we just got lost. Yes, I've done that before. You create a group and you can add people to that group. So then right now my options are to post public or here, let me start a new one. To post publicly or only me, so it's private. But if I change from public up at the top, I can change to a different group. So I have different groups here. I can post just to this this group. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that does. Thank you. And then another question that just occurs to me as you're doing that. If you wanted for some reason, and I'm not sure what the reason would be, but if you wanted to publish a print or PDF version of the book that includes the annotations, is there a workflow for that?
You know what? I don't know, because it's not integrated into the content. It's a layer on top.
Yeah,
so
okay, that's right. Yeah.
I think we'd have to get creative about
yeah,
how to do that.
okay.
What I would guess is that what we would do is go through a process where we would take the annotations that were going to be permanent and actually integrate them into the text itself.
Right.
And then we'd be able to create a PDF of that.
Yeah. Good, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm going to show you a little bit of the back end of Pressbooks. So once you have an account and you have a book that's created, we're going to just use this Elements of Style as our kind of playground today. At the very top, you'll see an admin link instead of a sign-in link. So right now I can see my admin and my sign out. So once I click on my admin screen, we're going to be taken to the dashboard. And if you've ever used a WordPress blog or a WordPress site, this is going to look really familiar. So we have our overview of our pages and chapters here, and then we have our overview of users. So another good thing about this system is that you can have multiple users working on the same book. So if you wanted to have multiple, say, students creating chapters and working on them simultaneously, they would be able to do that. Separate chapters. It unfortunately doesn't have cooperative editing yet. But you can have lots of users added to the site. So here on my left, I'm going to go to our organize page, and this is going to be the main hub for moving around chapters, editing chapters, and accessing them. So we have two types of content. We have parts, which then contain chapters. So right now we have front matter, we have main body, and then we have this second part that I added so that we would have multiple parts. And then we also have back matter. So in order to edit, you can just click in on the title or click the edit button. But we also have the option to move chapters down, but we also can pick it up and just drag and drop those chapters. So it's really easy to move things around within each part. And then adding a chapter is also very easy. We have an add chapter button down here. We also have an add chapter button under our organize panel up here. I'm just going to use this add chapter here. So again, if you're familiar with Pressbooks or you're familiar just with word processors, then you'll see a lot of familiar things here. We have our Wysiwyg Editor. Does anyone know what Wysiwyg stands for? I'll type it out.
What you see is what you get.
Yes. So it's a visual way of editing online that then automatically creates nice, clean HTML code for us so that we don't have to do it ourselves. So all these nice buttons give us that nice Wysiwyg editor. So you'll see a lot of familiar things: bold, italics, bullets, justification, colors, lots of things here. But then a couple of specific things I want to show you are, we have our styles here. So we have our headings and our paragraph. And these are really important for accessibility and just being able to know the hierarchy within our text. So those are just built in. And again, those create nice, nice HTML code for us without us having to do that. But we can do it if we want to on this text tab. So the other thing I want to show you that I mentioned earlier were those text boxes. So we have a standard text box, a shaded text box, and then we have a number of different colored text boxes that are examples, exercises, key takeaways, and learning objectives. So we have some kind of built-in prompts for us to maybe flesh out our textbook or whatever publication we're working on. But they don't necessarily have to be the things that are there titled. You can just change examples to, let's say, we want to make it further reading. And then we can link our articles. Whoops. I knew I was gonna show off my poor typing skills. Anyways, you can hyperlink them and it's great. Yeah. And then the other thing that's really, really easy to do is embed videos. So if you have a YouTube and I think this also works for Vimeo, all you have to do is grab the URL, and you can also grab it from the share here. And back in our text area, I'm just on a new line, and when I paste it, it automatically embeds. So that's really nice and easy. You can even put them inside the text box if you wanted to. So if you wanted to make it a feature, you do see it in action. So along with embedding outside media, you can upload your own videos, your own sound, and your own pictures. So we have our media library here that I can pull up from the Add Media button at the top. It shows all of the photos I have in place. I can also really easily drag and drop to upload files or select files. And then I can also upload audio or video to have those embedded there. So I'm just going to select one of my photos that's already uploaded, and I can add my alt text. Again, very important for accessibility. And then adding in a caption is also really good. And if you're getting it from somewhere else, you can build right into that your source attribution. So if you've gotten it from Flickr and it's openly licensed, you just put in the URL, the author, and the license. Let's put this CC0, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And then you can have that inserted into the chapter. And then there's a feature you can turn on that lets you show all the media attributions at the bottom of your page. So if you're using a lot of outside media, that's a really great tool. So we have our new chapter here. We can title it at the top. And then over on the right-hand side, we have our create button. Once we create the page, it turns into a save button. And I can also review any revisions I've made. So in case I make a revision that I want to undo, I can access that from this panel. Right now, there's only the one revision from nothing to all of this. So that's why it was blank on the left-hand side. I can also use this box here to change the part if I wanted it to be in the second part rather than the main body, but I'm just going to leave it where it is. And then lastly, we have some metadata at the bottom that allows us to add in a subtitle, chapter author. Maybe you're going to be having your students each write a chapter of a book, and you can add the student's name there. And you can even have each of the chapters have their own license. So maybe the whole book is CC BY, but one student elected that they want their CC BY SA, or even maybe CC 0. They said, you know, I want this to be public domain. So you can choose that specific license for that chapter. All right. So I've been showing you just adding in content at this point. So that's definitely an option, is to have a book and be able to just type right in there and have that be your authoring platform as well as your publishing platform. But you also might be interested in importing something you've already created. So one way to do that is just good old-fashioned copy pasting from a Google Doc or a Word document. That definitely works. It's just not it can probably get tedious if it's a long text. So we do have an import tool, and that import tool can work with a bunch of different formats that you can see here. You can import a web page if it's openly licensed, but more often we're going to be working with a Microsoft Word document or an open Office document. And what's nice about if you're working with a Word document, you can select a file, and if you have heading ones, if you have your chapter headings, like say you have a document that's all one document that has chapters within that one document, if you have each chapter title set to be heading 1 in using the styles in Microsoft Word, Pressbooks will automatically split those chapters for you. So I've just uploaded a demo doc, and you can see that I have a list here of chapter 1 and chapter 2 that I can select all of them, and I can specify whether I want them to be front matter, chapter, or back matter, or glossary. So I'm just going to leave them as chapter and then import those. So now you can see I have my chapter 1 and my chapter 2, and I can click in them. All the text that I had there exists there. If I had hyperlinks, if I had bullets, if I had footnotes, those would all show, and I wouldn't have to add those there. Oh, I wanted to show you glossary terms. So adding a glossary term is also really easy. You just click on the GL glossary term button, and then you add your description right here. Or you can choose an existing term. So if you have a term that comes up in multiple places, you're able to do that. And then Pressbooks automatically adds this short code that automatically codes that for you. So when you preview, it's going to be bolded and it'll function the way it's supposed to. So that is importing. Any questions about the editor or importing or anything else? Doesn't look like it.
Looks super easy, Allison. Thanks.
You're welcome. So I just have one more thing to go through, which is exporting. So that's the fun part, is being able to see it as an actual text. So as we know, we have, oops, it'll give you an alert if you try to leave without saving. So that's a nice feature. We have our online book, which we've already added content to. We've imported content. Let's say we're all done editing. We want to see this not just as this web book, but as as a PDF that maybe we want to get printed with print on demand, or just printed with a printer, or exported as an EPUB. So we have, before we get to exporting, we have a couple options in terms of our appearance. Actually, before I talk about that, I'm going to talk about the book info. So this is where you can specify the title and author and any other metadata about your text, and where you'll add your cover image. And you can also put your copyright notices there. So that's just where all of that information goes. But for themes, Pressbooks has a number of different themes, and mostly it's not going to be changing the whole look and feel of the web book, but it will change the fonts and the kind of look of especially those text boxes, and especially the PDF exports. So you can see we have a lot of different types of themes. A lot of these are made for kind of novel type publications, but a little farther down we have ones that are maybe a little bit better for scholarly publications with subtitles and chapter authors and things like that. And then we have Malala, which is the most recent theme that was specifically designed with open textbooks in mind. So let's say we want to use, let's go to Malala. So I'm going to activate that theme. And then I have a bunch of options in theme options. So I have global options that allow me to control whether the part numbers or chapter numbers automatically show, whether you want a double two-level table of contents. This is where you can turn on your media attributions at the end of the chapter. This is where you can select any languages any other languages or scripts you might be using in your textbook. Has a long list of different supported texts there as well. And you can see here that you can also control the colors of the text boxes that show up. So if you don't like the orange color, you can change it to a nice teal. There we go. We can also change things that are specifically on the web. So we might want to have one, we might want to change the header font and the body font for easier reading for web. And we can change a bunch of these options as well. And then under PDF, this is where we have the most options, and we can control what the book looks like when it's printed out. Again, we can control our fonts. I'm not sure what Spectral looks like, so let's check that out. And then I can control the font size, I can control the page size, I can add in, increase or decrease the margins, control hyphenation, control the section openings and the paragraph separations, and widows and orphans, and then even the headers on all of the different pages. So right now they're all set to having just the title of whatever section you're in. I'm going to save those changes. Under ebook options, you don't have too much. You just have the body font and then where the book starts. So in case you want people to just start reading right at the first chapter, you can do that, or you can set it to be at the introduction. All right, so then exporting. So we have a number of formats we can export in, as I have mentioned before. We have the main ones, PDF, EPUB, and MOBI, and then we have Open Document, Pressbooks, and WordPress XML. I want to highlight those because that is really important for the retain in the 5 R's for OER. So what I really like about Pressbooks is that it's open source, so it's easy to, can be free if you know how to install the software and run the network. But you can easily transport it from Pressbooks to Pressbooks. So if you ever wanted to move your book from our Pressbooks to a different, like pressbooks.com or somewhere else, you would be able to export that XML document and import it in another document or in another Pressbooks site. And you could also even just import that into a WordPress site. So it allows you to retain that content, and you're not putting it into some proprietary software that might get lost, and you don't have any way to get what you've put in and you have a way to get out what you've put in. And then the open document format, I think, is also really nice, so that you can have what you have created in another editable format. So again, in case for some reason this was going to go away, you would be able to still have an editable version of that. So for right now, I'm going to do a PDF for digital distribution. For print, it just doesn't have the links, since you wouldn't need all the embedded links for printing. This is a short book, so it should go fairly quickly. Yep. And then we have our, I think it's like the 5 most recent downloads of each type in the bottom. So it saves those so you can compare versions if you need to. And you can easily download. I'm going to stop sharing so I can. So this is the text we just exported. Our chapters are clickable. You can see we have my custom teal color text box there. And I wanted to show you as well, when you've embedded a video, the system will keep a little snapshot of the video in and just note a YouTube element has been excluded from this version of the text. You can view it online here. And then it links right to the page where that video lives, so that a student that might prefer PDF or prefer print will know, oh, here's an interactive item that I need to go online for. So that's a relatively new feature, and it used to be something that was very hard to manage in textbooks that you're developing online and then wanting to print. And so this is really nice that it's just built in that way. You can see we have our attributions, the image attribution that we added, and then the chapters we added, and the rest of the text. And in the online, in the PDF version, our glossary will be just a regular glossary at the back of the book. So it will just compile all of those glossary terms that are clickable in the book, and they'll just be regular bolded text, indicating that they appear in the glossary. So that is the final product. Now, there is one more thing that I wanted to share, but are there any questions about exporting or finishing up a publication?
I just had a question about, not so much about like exporting it, but like, is there a way that this like integrates into Canvas, or like how would you recommend that if we use an ebook on this platform, like delivering that to students aside, and like I know I could give them a link to the Pressbooks website, but like what is there anything else that it could do?
Yeah, so you're right. One way would be to link to the book. You could also link to the individual chapters and have those within the modules, but that can be a little bit tedious. So what I would suggest if you want to embed it into a course is that we then take what we've created on our Pressbooks and we would port it over into Lumen Learning's Candela platform, which has an LTI setup with Canvas. And so, so their software is also based on Pressbooks. And so we would basically be making a copy of that and putting it into a new version of Pressbooks that then has LTI capability. And that just means that you can import those pages and chapters automatically and they would show up in modules. So any part that you have created would become a module and any pages within that would be, they would be links, but they would populate within Canvas. So the student isn't going outside of Canvas. Yeah. So the only downside to that is that you then have 2 copies of the text. So, but if you've finished your publication then and you know don't have to make frequent updates, then it's not a big deal.
Okay.
But yes, there's definitely a way to do that. All right, I was just going to go over one last thing. That's not necessarily our Pressbooks, but it is the Pressbooks Directory. And I've finally figured out how to get to the chat. So that is the link to the directory. So this is a directory that was put together by Pressbooks of all of the, not every single one, but most of the institutions that utilize Pressbooks. So you can search all of the books at the same time. This is really a great resource because it shows only text that you can make copies of and make and do revising and remixing with. With the exception of the all rights reserved content. So you just have to, I mean, it won't let you copy the all rights reserved content, but everything else in here you can easily make a copy of. So let's say we wanted to make our own version of an APA style manual so our students don't have to buy the actual manual. We want to have an online version that they can access. I've looked up style and I see that there's a couple APA style manuals. I take a look at this one. I like the looks of it. It does everything I needed to do.
I'm stealing this idea. This is actually really useful for the library to have like on our, we often tell them to go to OWL Purdue, but I really like this a lot.
Good, yeah, these are great. And we can even, if it's something that you would all use, we can make a version of it and have it live in Milne Publishing.
We actually just had a faculty member in our new faculty orientation asking about Chicago style. I'm wondering if there was a similar tool for Chicago style.
That's a great
Becky,
question.
who is in our new faculty group, was suggesting OWL Purdue. So.
A great resource. I'm not sure, I didn't do a lot of searching in the directory for style manuals, so there could be one for Chicago. This is just what came up.
That's good to know.
First for me. But Pressbooks has a really cool cloning feature. So we've talked about making copies via importing an XML version, which would mean that you have to come here, download it, create a new book and upload it. Instead, they have a one-click method of making a clone of an openly licensed text that then is stamped with that this book is cloned by this other book that I showed you on Brandon's text earlier. So if you have a book already, then you should be able to access this, but you hover over My Books and you have a Create a Book and a Clone a Book option. So once you go to the Clone a Book, all you have to do is enter the URL, oh my goodness, the URL, and then the URL you want the title to be. And then you don't even have to put in the title because it can have its own title. Whoops. And then hit, I already made this one. And then you hit clone it, and then it will just take a few minutes to pull all of that information and create a new book.
I want to pull that APA guide into my book that I'm working on that you showed earlier. So that
Yeah, we can do that.
I would love that.
Yeah, all you would have to do, or we can do this.
Like, I really, really love Pressbooks. Like, this is so cool.
It's really fun. And then the last thing I want to show you, I wanted to show you this particular tutorial because it has H5p activities in it, which are interactive activities. So just like Hypothesis is a third-party tool that you can use to create interactive content and then embed it into your own text. Mm-hmm. So for example, here we have a journal article cues. We're learning about, how to read a journal article, how to learn, what journal it's from, what issue number. So I can click up here and learn that, like, okay, these numbers up here are the volume and issue numbers. This list here
really
are
cool.
all the authors. Yeah, I was so excited to find this.
I think this would be really great.
Really well put together.
I think this would be really great, like, especially in, let's say, like 100 level courses where students might just be being introduced to like reading more literature and less like textbooks. Like, this would be really helpful just as like a reminder to them, like, because this isn't necessarily like intuitive, like the layout of a journal article to like a 18-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. And this is nice because it's not just, looking at something, and if they're looking at it on their own, they might have trouble discerning what is what. And if they're just reading a textbook, it's not as interactive as actually interacting with the.
So did they overlay, so they like took a image of the article and then they put the little green eye images on, and then they used the overlay feature on that, right?
So the whole thing is the interactive feature. And so This is the H5p website. You can see there's a ton of things that you can make. So you can have quizzes, you can have cards, you can have collages. This one I think is the image hotspot. So all you have to do is upload an image, and then
I've seen things like that.
Yeah, and then you get an embed code, and then you can embed it right in the page.
I think this would be really cool too for like, if you're thinking about using OER with students and having them not just consume the content, but help create it like in a low stakes way. So maybe you're not ready to like try to have them write a textbook because, that is very ambitious, but maybe even doing something where you have them like annotate a diagram or something that could allow you to like, I could like the one of the strawberry you just showed, like, I don't know what that would be telling, but you could like give them criteria and have them like do an assignment where they basically create that kind of chart that could be shared with other students. I think there's a lot of cool
they could be
learning
making
possibilities.
They could be making like study aids for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can put them all together in a book, and then they would have this whole interactive study guide resource that was made by all the people in the class. Speaking of student work, there are a number of really awesome examples of of texts that are student created. So this one is a book of biographies and portraits of women in the Pacific Northwest that were all created by undergraduate students. And I love it because it has their original art, and it's highlighting women that aren't usually highlighted. And it's all student authored. And then I have also worked with a faculty member at Buffalo who it was a public health class. She wanted to use an open textbook, but there wasn't anything in her area. And so what she did is she just made a pretty detailed outline of what the textbook would be, and then had her students break up into groups, and she would give them places to research those areas, and they would just fill in the outline and wrote the textbook. And by the end of the semester, they had a launch party, and each of them had a physical textbook in their hand that they helped write. So it's really exciting possibilities.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and personally, I'm always just interested. Like, as a librarian, I don't always have a lot of like opportunities to do assignments, but now that I'm teaching this 1-credit course, I'm thinking a little bit differently about it. But I'm like, what can we do beyond just like the usual stuff, like writing a paper? And I think a lot of the inhibiting things for me, it's just like, well, where can I do that? And now that just like seeing this new platform from my perspective, is very accessible for the lay person like me. It's like, I have some, I'm like getting all these cool ideas for potential like ways to engage the students.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. That's exactly what it should do. That's what we're hoping for. And then lastly, I just want to say, all of this is available to the SUNY community, and I am also available as support. So this definitely wouldn't have to be you get an account and you get access to a book and you're on your own. I'm here to support any of the texts that are being added, and if things like importing or doing the formatting and doing the cloning or any of those things seem like not your cup of tea, or not something you want to do or spend your time on, then those are things that me and my student can do to support the text. So for example, with George's book, the botany textbook Inanimate Life, our office is handling the import and the formatting of that text because it's one of our publications. So so it's do as much as you want and you still have an office to support you type of service. So yeah. Any last questions, thoughts?
Thank you for this, Allison.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
I'm going to stop recording now.